For years, a peaceful million-dollar farm in Indiana, USA hid a dark secret. It was a serial killer's playground. This crime became the most high-profile case in the USA. Herbert Baumeister, who is an epitome of a serial killer. A man well-composed and calculating, showing no signs of remorse even after committing heinous acts. Astonishingly, Baumeister was also a successful entrepreneur, the last person one would suspect. Despite a series of disappearances of young homosexuals in Indianapolis during the 90s, Baumeister, a respected businessman and philanthropist, maintained an exemplary family life. The press overlooked these cases, and the conservative police attributed them to the migration of young individuals to more liberal cities like San Francisco and New York, leaving society to accept this superficial explanation. However, the families of the missing, unsatisfied with this response, took matters into their own hands. The shocking revelation came when they discovered that the source of these disappearances was connected to a member of the local high society. Herbert Richard Baumeister was born on April 7, 1947, in Indiana, USA, to anesthesiologist Herbert Eugene and Elizabeth Baumeister. Alongside Herbert, the couple had 3 other children. Seeking a more affluent life, the family relocated to Washington, Indiana. From a young age, Herbert displayed peculiar behaviors. These eccentricities intensified during his adolescence. A school friend reported Herbert's unusual habits, such as tasting human urine and collecting dead birds to observe them in a curious and macabre manner during classes. The situation escalated to arson, prompting his parents to seek psychiatric evaluation for him. Herbert Baumeister was diagnosed with schizophrenia and exhibited traits of bipolar disorder, yet there are no records of him receiving appropriate treatment. Despite attempting to participate in sports during school, this activity did not align with his studious and reserved nature, leading to increased frustration. Over time, Herbert further isolated himself, rejecting the company of others and solidifying his reputation as a loner. He had no interest in making new friends or socializing with girls, and neither did any girls attempt to get to know him better. At the age of 18, in 1965, he started his studies at Indiana University, but left in his first year, only to return in 1967. In 1972, he briefly attended Butler University for just 1 semester. Following his father's influence, Herbert landed a job at the Indianapolis Star, the city's primary newspaper. He felt driven and saw potential for growth in that influential setting, yet struggled to adapt socially. An odd incident took place when Herbert, working at the newspaper, used a hearse from the hospital where his father worked to transport colleagues to a football game. This event, causing other drivers to yield and sparking laughter in Herbert, made his colleagues uncomfortable and led to his subsequent dismissal. With his father's intervention, he secured a position in the vehicle motor department. Seen as peculiar by his co-workers, especially after a Christmas incident where Herbert distributed cards featuring a photo of him and another man dressed as women. Despite his quirks, Herbert displayed intelligence at work, eventually rising to the position of programming director. Already known for his eccentricities, he escalated his reckless behavior at work, culminating in an incident where he urinated on his boss's desk. This act was the final straw, showcasing his penchant for increasingly immature and bizarre antics. Alongside his tumultuous professional life, Herbert met Julie through a mutual acquaintance. United by dreams of entrepreneurship and drawn to his light hair and friendly demeanor, Julie fell in love with him. Their relationship progressed rapidly, leading to their marriage in November 1971 in a lavish ceremony at an Indianapolis church. Herbert Baumeister enjoyed a substantial income while Julie, his wife, taught journalism at a high school before focusing on their family. With the arrival of Mary in 1979 and Eric in 1981, the couple's life seemed to be on the right track. However, Herbert's tendency for inappropriate behaviors culminated in a disastrous incident when he urinated on a letter addressed to the governor of Indiana, which was on his boss's desk. This irreverent act resulted in his dismissal, forcing Julie to return to teaching high school, while Herbert found work at a thrift store. Herbert quickly realized the lucrative potential of working at a thrift store and sharing his discoveries with Julie, they decided to open their own store. With a loan of $4,000 from Herbert's mother, they inaugurated Save a Lot, a store in partnership with the Indianapolis Children's Department, supporting the local charity. The store quickly gained popularity among low-income families and was a financial success, earning over $50,000 in the first year and enabling the opening of a second branch. In 1981, with the birth of Emily and the success of the business, the Baumeister family ascended socially and moved to a mansion in Westfield, known as Fox Hollow Farms. The property had 18 acres, including an indoor pool, 4 bedrooms, and a stable. However, despite the success, life at Fox Hollow Farms was not as good as it seemed. Herbert assumed an authoritarian posture that often overshadowed Julie, and this began to generate tensions. The couple faced periods of coldness and distancing, and the environment at the mansion was often described as tense by neighbors and business partners. As Herbert allowed the mansion and its 18 acres to deteriorate, covered in tall weeds and neglected, Julie made sure to take the children weekly to visit Grandma Baumeister at a nearby condo by a lake, something that began to bother Herbert. The tension in the marriage increased. Julie felt exhausted by the dynamics of the relationship where, according to her, intimacy was rare and awkward, occurring less than 5 times during the entire marriage. Herbert, always clad in his pajamas, restricted the scarce moments of intimacy, citing his embarrassment over his slender physique. The detective observed these behaviors as indicative of deeper and more troubling issues. On the other hand, Julie seemed to develop an emotional and financial reliance, choosing to overlook the alarming signs in order to maintain familial stability. This denial would prove perilous, particularly in 1994, when their son Eric stumbled upon a human skull while playing in the yard, concealed amidst the foliage. Upon bringing this discovery to his mother, they soon realized it was a complete skeleton. Confronted by Julie, Herbert theatrically asserted that it was a dissection skeleton belonging to his deceased doctor father, which he had decided to bury after cleaning out the garage. Julie accepted this explanation, unaware that these remains actually belonged to one of Herbert's victims. Herbert, more infamously known as the Interstate 70 Strangler, had terrorized Ohio from 1980 to 1991 and was now establishing a new reign of victims in Indianapolis. In this context, Private Detective Virgil Vandegrift stood out in the region with his 24-hour operating investigation agency, swiftly gaining recognition. Specializing in missing persons cases, Virgil became the go-to option for those unwilling to endure the bureaucratic delays of the police, who only initiated searches 24 hours after a disappearance and often ceased efforts after 30 days without results. In early 1994, Virgil took on the case of Alan Broussard, a 28-year-old known for frequenting the gay Bar Brothers. Concerned about her alcoholic son's disappearance, Alan's mother sought out Virgil's assistance. While initially considering the possibility that Alan had left of his own accord, Virgil grew alarmed upon discovering similar cases of disappearances in the area. The police were already investigating the vanishing of several young homosexuals who shared similar profiles to Alan in terms of age and appearance. In 1993, Virgil's investigations uncovered a startling revelation. Another man named Jeff Jones, who shared a similar personality with Alan, had mysteriously vanished in the same area. This discovery added another layer of intrigue to the already perplexing case. The following year, in July 1994, Roger Goodlett, a 34-year-old man, disappeared after visiting a gay bar. The similarities in age and lifestyle between Roger and the previous cases immediately caught Virgil's attention. Roger's mother described him as someone who indulged in excessive drinking and often acted childishly, making him appear vulnerable to potential harm. Undeterred by the challenges they faced, Virgil and investigator May Risley tirelessly combed through bars in search of clues. However, they encountered witnesses who were reluctant to share information, preferring to protect their privacy. Despite these obstacles, their determination paid off when they discovered that Roger had been seen with a mysterious man. This breakthrough marked a turning point in the investigation. In August 1994, Tony Harris, a friend of Roger's, approached Virgil's department with a crucial piece of information. Tony recounted an encounter he had at Club 501, a popular gay bar in Indianapolis. He noticed a tall, silent man who seemed fixated on a missing person poster of Roger. Intrigued, Tony introduced himself to the man, who identified himself as Brian. However, Brian evaded all questions regarding Roger. Curiosity getting the better of him, Tony accepted Brian's invitation to visit his seemingly empty house. Local police dismissed Tony's account as a drug-induced delusion, but Virgil saw it as a significant lead that couldn't be ignored. Tony embarked on a journey with Brian, heading north of Indianapolis towards a region dotted with farms and luxurious residences. As they arrived at their destination, Tony could only make out the word farms on the entrance sign. The house, resembling more of a grand mansion, exuded an eerie atmosphere. Inside, various objects were scattered, and mannequins surrounded an indoor pool located in the basement. Tension escalated as Brian, under the influence of cocaine, suggested a risky game of strangulation with a hose during their intimate encounter, claiming it would heighten the sensation. Sensing the seriousness of the situation, Tony pretended to faint when it was his turn to be strangled. Irritated, Brian mentioned previous accidents that had occurred during this practice. Tony took advantage of the moment and subtly asked if something similar had happened with Roger, causing Brian to smile mysteriously. After the incident, while Brian slept, Tony searched the house for any clues that could reveal Brian's true identity or his connection to the disappearances. However, all he found were children's toys and women's clothes, providing no concrete evidence of who actually lived there. The house appeared abandoned, offering little assistance to the investigation. When Brian woke up, Tony convinced him to return to the bar, leaving the mansion with more questions than answers. Brian left Tony with an invitation to meet again on Wednesday at the pub. Tony was uncertain about the location of the mansion, only remembering that it was outside the county and had a sign ending in farm. On Wednesday, Detective Virgil and his team were at the pub, but Brian failed to show up. Luckily, Virgil had a good rapport with Detective Mary Wilson, an experienced investigator in sexual crime and disappearance cases. Mary had been investigating this series of disappearances of homosexual men in the region since 1990, including the cases of Jack Jones and Roger Goodlett. Recognizing the significance of Tony's testimony, she, Virgil, and Tony embarked on a search for the mansion in the described region, but their efforts proved fruitless. Meanwhile, the police kept a close watch on local pubs in hopes of apprehending the suspect. With the involvement of the police, Virgil felt excluded and skeptical of their ability to solve the case, fearing that the suspect was more than just a kidnapper. He could potentially be a serial killer. By determination, Virgil dispatched one of his skilled investigators, a former state police officer well-versed in the local roads, to meticulously comb through the northern region of the county. After a few days of relentless searching, the investigator stumbled upon a property in Westfield that bore the name Fox Hollow Farm, aligning perfectly with Tony's account. The grand mansion stood before them, appearing both vast and abandoned. However, lacking the necessary legal authorization to delve deeper into the investigation, the investigator resorted to capturing photographs and uncovering the property's ownership by the Baumeister family. Presenting the photographs to Tony, he was taken aback as he failed to recognize the place, noting a stark contrast between his recollection and the reality before him. As the investigations pressed on, Herbert Baumeister's behavior grew increasingly tyrannical and degrading, subjecting his employees to excessive demands and assuming an authoritarian stance. Frequently disappearing for hours on end, he would return reeking of alcohol, further cementing his domineering nature. This lack of effective management inevitably led to the decline of the stores under his control. Herbert's erratic conduct, fueled by alcohol and drug abuse, served as a telltale sign of his mental instability, a common trait among criminals in positions of power. A year into the relentless pursuit led by detectives Virgil and Mary Wilson, a pivotal breakthrough occurred on August 29, 1995. Tony Harris, while at a gay bar, unexpectedly crossed paths with Herbert, whom he knew as Brian Smart. Seizing the opportunity, Tony managed to discreetly note down the license plate of Herbert's pickup truck. The following day, he promptly shared this crucial information with Mary, who swiftly discovered that the license plate did not belong to a Brian Smart, but rather to Herbert Richard Baumeister, the resident of Fox Hollow Farm in Westfield, Indiana. Armed with this vital piece of information, Mary and Lieutenant Thomas Green sought the necessary authorization to search Herbert and Julie's property. However, Herbert vehemently denied the request, while Julie, misinformed by her husband, believed the investigation to be centered on theft, adamantly rejecting any allegations of her husband's involvement in the heinous crimes. Julie's request for the police to vacate her home was met with initial resistance, a reaction that Mary anticipated would evolve over time. The tension between Julie and Herbert reached new heights as the investigation intensified, leaving Herbert visibly more agitated. Feeling the impact of the situation, Julie even went as far as to call Mary and blame her for complicating her life. Since Mary had no authority in Hamilton County, Julie's cooperation was essential for the investigation to progress. Herbert Baumeister's circumstances continued to deteriorate. The Children's Department terminated its contract with his struggling Save-A-Lot stores. Faced with Herbert's growing paranoia, Julie decided to file for divorce and question her husband's mental state. On June 23, 1996, while Herbert was away with their son, Eric, visiting his mother, Julie took action. She contacted her attorney, who then informed Detective Mary Wilson about a disturbing discovery Eric had made in their backyard 2 years prior. With Herbert out of town, Mary, along with a team that included Tom Anderson from the county sheriff's office and Detective Jeff Marco, arrived at the Baumeister residence. Despite their skepticism, they were met by Julie and her lawyer. In the backyard, where Eric had found the bones, the team uncovered a charred bone approximately 30 cm long, along with several burnt fragments scattered on the ground, indicating they were human remains. Julie admitted that she had initially believed Herbert's explanation for the bones, which explained her delay in reporting them to the authorities. Mary handed over the fragments to a forensic anthropologist at Indiana University, who confirmed they were human bones, some of which had been recently burned. The following day, the area was sealed off, and an extensive search was conducted at what seemed to be Herbert's hidden burial ground. Mary firmly believed that the remains of numerous young homosexuals who had gone missing over the years were buried there, finally bringing closure to their families and solving a string of dark cases. Fox Hollow Farm quickly transformed into a bustling investigation site with the prosecutor, 12 detectives, and a meticulous scientific exhumation team. Within just 30 minutes, the ground was dotted with nearly 100 orange flags, painting a picture as grim as that of a natural disaster. Inside the house, they stumbled upon the indoor pool mentioned by Tony Harry, along with a hidden camera that raised suspicions of being used to record the heinous acts. Tensions escalated when Julie, worried about her son Eric's safety in the company of Herbert, feared his reaction upon discovering the police searches on their property. Acting swiftly, the prosecutor and judge ordered the immediate removal of the boy from his father's custody. When the police arrived with the necessary documents to take the child away, Herbert calmly handed him over, oblivious to the fact that his dark secrets were slowly coming to light. One of the biggest mysteries was how Herbert managed to commit such atrocities without his family's knowledge. Julie revealed that during the summer, she and the children often visited Herbert's mother, a widow who adored her grandchildren. In the initial 2 days of searching, volunteers unearthed over 5,500 bones and pieced together 4 bodies. Locals also pointed out a ditch at the property's edge, where human bones and Herbert's preferred beer cans were discovered. Ultimately, more than 140 bones were found in the ditch, bringing the total count of identified victims to 11. In September 1996, anthropologists identified some of the bodies found on Herbert Baumeister's land as those of Roger, Stephen, Richard, and Manuel. However, many of the remains remain nameless to this day. Following the gruesome discoveries on his farm, Herbert Baumeister went on the run. The police first got a lead on Herbert's location when his brother mentioned that he had requested money on June 29, 1996. After sending the money and learning about the ongoing investigations, Brad reached out to the authorities once more. Herbert eventually fled to Canada, where he tragically took his own life on July 3rd by shooting himself in the head. In his suicide note, he cited a failed marriage and business troubles, but made no mention of the murders. Interestingly, just before his death, a Canadian police officer encountered Herbert sleeping in his car and noticed several videotapes in his possession, although their contents were not confirmed. Private Detective Virgil had initially connected the disappearances of gay men in Indianapolis to the strangulation cases on Interstate 70 in Ohio. After sharing his discoveries with the prosecutor, they both agreed that the crime patterns were strikingly similar, reinforcing the belief that the incidents were linked. The Interstate 70 strangler's final murder occurred in 1990, coinciding with the start of the disappearances in Indianapolis. In 1982, a task force was established to probe the crimes, with a primary focus on 3 young gay men who were killed between 1981 and 1983. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, which joined the investigation in 1983, proposed the existence of another killer operating alongside the strangler. The strangler was described as a white man around 45 years old, holding a steady job, respected in the community, and potentially married, yet not engaging in sexual relations with his wife due to his attraction to men. Interestingly, Herbert Baumeister, who was approximately 35 years old at the time, shared many of these traits. Further inquiries unveiled his frequent business trips to the area in the late 80s, aligning with the killer's profile. The murders attributed to the strangler ceased when Baumeister acquired Fox Hollow Farm, hinting that he might have begun concealing bodies there. Julie was not taken aback by the revelations made during the farm investigations. She had been instrumental in providing crucial information to the prosecutors, such as receipts and phone records. It was particularly noteworthy that Baumeister's appearance closely resembled a police sketch based on witness testimonies from Ohio. The reopening of the case gained momentum when a witness positively identified Baumeister as the last person seen with Michael Riley before his tragic murder in 1988. This undeniable connection solidified Baumeister's association with the notorious Interstate 70 strangler, although some skeptics still question his complete culpability for the crimes. Furthermore, the investigation uncovered the unsettling fact that Herbert's brother was discovered deceased in Texas during the same period.